Fire Prevention Week. Maybe we will.
Capron?
Here.
Gretkin?
Here.
Moore? Scott?
Here.
Waters?
Make a motion, we go into closed session, the city council discuss the purchase or sale of particular real estate where premature disclosure could be reasonably expected to increase the price the city would have to pay for that property, or reduce the price the city would receive for that property. Second.
Gretkin?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Waters?
Aye.
Capron?
Aye.
You're gonna do this art first then?
Yeah.
Second, additional, I assume that's what it is.
Oh, must have been, and I see Steve Stricker won it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Rhonda.
Say aye.
Aye. Return to open session.
Oh, yeah.
Aye. Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Waters?
Aye.
I move we adjourn to closed session.
Second.
Capron?
Aye.
Gretkin?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Waters?
Aye.
Capron? Capron? Here. Gretkin?
Here.
Moore? Scott?
Here.
Waters?
Here.
We stand for a moment of silent prayer followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have no proclamations and we have no interviews, so we'll go right to the consent agenda, which is items 2 through 15C. Consider each item to pass unless a separate roll call vote's asked for. If you want to speak on any item or under citizen concerns, please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record, please. I'll move the consent agenda.
Second.
2 is a reading of the city council minutes of September 17th and 18th, 2018. 3 is a resolution authorizing an application for membership in the Iowa Municipalities Workmen's Compensation Association. 4 is a resolution adopting plans and specifications for the rebid of hail damaged roofs and building projects. 5 are resolutions scheduling a hearing on the issuance of $33 million worth of sewer revenue capital loan notes. 6 are resolutions amending a position classification manual by approving an updated job description for water plant maintenance worker and winter recreation attendant. 7 are resolutions inviting proposals for the sale of land in the combined central Sioux City CBD urban renewal area, announcing the intent to sell the proposal.
I had a question about that, Chris. With this part of the alleyway, will we still, I'm sure it's something we look into, but as far as like fire concerns or getting a rig to that corner of the building or that area, is that a worry? I mean, if we don't have that alley area there?
No, the alley that goes to the east side of the east-west alley and the south half of the north-south alley will still be open, and there's no intention for anything to be constructed over the north side of the north-south alley, the alley that is between the parking lot, and so there'll be plenty of access to the back of the building.
Okay, so they just want that north-south portion, but they're not intending to block it or?
Yeah, there won't be any blocking between there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
8 are actions relating to grants. A is a resolution accepting a grant agreement with Homeland Security and Emergency Management for the Homeland Security Grant Program. B is a resolution authorizing Parks and Recreation to apply for an Iowa Federal Recreation Trail Program grant for the Riverfront Trail Redevelopment Project. C, a resolution accepting the grant agreement from the FAA for Phase 2 of the runway reconstruction and shift and taxiway reconstruction project at the Gateway Airport. This is something we've already bid, we just have a grant to do the second half, correct? Okay. 9 are actions relating to street closures. A is the resolution temporarily closing various streets in the downtown area October 12th for the Fallen Firefighters Memorial Event. B is a resolution temporarily closing portions of Rebecca Street and West 19th Street on October 4th for the West High School Homecoming Parade. 10 are civil penalties and suspension. A is a resolution assessing a $500 civil penalty against Red Robin, 4900 Sergeant Road for violation of the Iowa beer and liquor laws. B is a resolution assessing a $500 civil penalty against Transit General Store, 2324 Transit Avenue for violation of the Iowa beer, wine, and liquor laws. C is a resolution assessing a $1,500 civil penalties and suspending for 30 days the permit issued by Chipotle Mexican Grill, 5001 Sergeant Road for violation of the Iowa beer, wine, and liquor laws. 11 are related to agreements and contracts. A is a resolution approving a change order number 1 to the agreement with AC&R Specialists for the evaporative condenser replacement project at the IBP Ice Center. B is a resolution approving a cooperative agreement between the Iowa Civil Rights Commission and the Human Rights Commission ending June 30th, 2019 for the purpose of cross-filing complaints. I'd like to abstain on that item, please. C is a resolution approving change order number 2 to the contract with KP Construction for the annual storm inlet rehabilitation project. 12 are purchasing. A is a resolution awarding a purchase order to Physio Control for 2 LifePak defibrillators. B is a resolution awarding a purchase order to Fraser LTD for 4 ambulances. I'd like to pull that and have a vote on that item, please. You guys have looked at these 2 units. I mean, because I'm going to be perfectly honest and blunt that you don't want me to be today, I know, but there's a lot of confusion in what actually is in your memos and what is reality. So my trust level in this particular purchase is not exactly there, Chief.
I can appreciate that, Mayor. And for the rest of the council, we have a statement in the RCA that is inaccurate, and that is pertaining to the warranties. The warranties are significantly under and overstated to the point where there's negligible difference. And therefore, we're still recommending the unit that we recommended in there because of the fact that we believe maintenance-wise, they'll cost us less in the long run. There's some advantages
And why is that, or what
to that.
portion, Chief?
There are.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No problem. There's several factors, but the electrical components are the main one. Instead of computerized type electrical components and relays connected to the chassis, the model that we're recommending has its own generator. So it doesn't, if you've ever heard an ambulance when it pulls up to the scene, they rev way up. That's basically the unit calling for power to the back of the ambulance. Whereas this one has its own power unit. So it's also just the way that it's built. Because of that, they're easier to take off and remount onto another chassis. So just based on the experience that we have with ambulances, we believe that's going to be much more cost effective.
And then that can be all done right here.
Yeah.
Have a lifetime warranty and it's 2 years. How do we know that? I want to know that. I want to see these units. I'm sorry, but I don't believe anything right now because of the way I got. I don't know how you could have read that warranty and said it was lifetime warranty. I don't know who in the world read that, but it took me 2 minutes to realize it's a 2-year warranty. The others are 3.
That's my fault. It wasn't reviewed properly.
So how do we know what you're saying? I'm not trying to be
No, I
argumentative, but
understand
doggone it, when you get that what it tells me is you want to buy these units. I get that. I'm not stupid. That's what you want to buy. Mm-hmm. Then why bid this stuff? I'm tired of it personally. We bid this stuff and then we say to the low bidder, well, you know what? Yours isn't, even though we wrote the spec, and you guys have had a closed spec on your fire trucks, has been a complaint that Bob got to experience it this year. You've had closed specs on your fire trucks forever around here. You're going to buy from those people in Sioux Falls no matter what happens because you write that spec so close that only one person can meet it. Well, why didn't you write this spec that said they had to have a separate generating unit? Then we would have only had one bidder.
We've never had Fraser before. When we saw the units, we were just impressed by some of the differences. But again, the main thing is that we're going to be happy with either one. They're both improvements over what we have. And we just felt as a staff that the one would save a little money long-term. That's it.
And these don't have all the bells and whistles either, do they?
Pardon me?
They're
They
not,
have lights and sirens.
yeah, that's all you
They
need.
do have lights and sirens.
That's all you need, right?
It's simply put, they have switches instead of computer pad type things. We tend to break things. And so if we can go get a $10 switch instead of a, like these computerized cars anymore, when something goes wrong, you can't fix it yourself type stuff. So that was a big.
Had this before, I mean, is that our experience before, or are we just speculating?
What do we have now? And first of all, state your name and address, because I've already.
Sure. Sioux City Fire Chief Tom Everett. Jim, I'll ask you this one. In terms of the brand that we have now, and the kind of computer switches and whatnot that we already own.
Jim Hayden, EMS Director. What we've got now are 3 Lifeline units, and basically the control panels in there, it's what we originally sent out the bid for, which we would have gotten basically 1 bid had we kept that in line, and that was from Lifeline. It was for a multiplex system, which is the last 3 ambulances that were purchased. They've got a computer, basically a touch screen, front and rear. If that breaks, you're talking $3,000 to repair it versus a $10 switch that you can go buy at a hardware place. So
How many have you broken?
one.
One, and how
Actually,
many?
it was one of those has been broken. It was while it was under warranty, it was broken at the repair shop, and they actually ended up paying for it. But I've been holding my breath ever since those have been off warranty to hopefully not have that happen again.
And how long have you had these units?
I want to say
10, 11, and
2
12.
years. Yeah.
How
No,
long?
It's been. I'd have to look that up, Mayor.
So you had one, and how many units do you have?
We've got 8 total.
You have had one breakdown in those 8 units. In how many?
Well, no, one of those computer components has broken down. So far, over the last 8 months, the repairs for the 4 frontline rigs in total have been, I believe, 22 or 24,000. So significant cost in repairs and upkeep for these ambulances, but we're trying to keep that to a minimum.
I want to understand how many of the switches that you're worried about have broken. That's what the question is. I know you're going to have
Oh,
maintenance.
okay.
You can tell me you're going to buy a new ambulance, you're not going to have maintenance. You're going to have $20,000 worth of maintenance on ambulances, no matter what, in 4 months. That's not a question. You're going to have that.
There's been one of those.
Okay, and how
break.
many units?
8.
There's only 3 of those with that particular
Okay,
computer.
3, and how old are they?
I'd have to look at when those were purchased. I want to say,
Ones that we're replacing or no?
No,
No.
those are the 3 newer ones.
Oh, okay.
and those would have been either 2016 or 17, I believe.
Because I mean, don't get me wrong, I understand the reliance on technology and how that can break down. I have it with my van all the time. Like, I understand that. I think we just want to make sure that we're being fiscally responsible or away from it, and I would rather have a little switch, but if it's negligible, we don't think that it's going to be a big issue, then I would rather go the lower bit. Does that make sense?
It does.
So I mean, Jim, I know you've had that one worry or the one switch go bad within warranty. Are you hearing from other people? Because this is the first time we've used these 3 units, I'm assuming.
No, and it's not just that computer component alone that made me kind of lean toward Fraser. It was the ability to disconnect a lot of those electrical components from the chassis of the ambulance, which get you around a lot of the more technical wiring schematics and harnesses, where you can kind of separate the two. If you will, I compare it to the difference between a motor home, that everything's contained, all the wiring, and sliding in a camper into the back of your pickup. A little bit more technical than that, but that's kind of what I compare it to.
And what are the thoughts as far as the bidding separate for like, the striker or the cots? I mean, is that, it's always kind of a package deal, look, wherever you buy the rig is where you get the cot?
No, we thought we would bid it that way with the rig
Try to save money on
to
it.
try to save money and separately. So both ways to see whichever way we could get the whole package done cheaper. So we had some options.
I didn't see the separate bids though. Were those cheaper? I mean, if we were more expensive on the rigs and we went for the extra money there, would we make up
Actually,
for it?
and that's, that should be on another document here, but if we went with Foster Coach, they actually had a lower bid on the striker equipment than Striker had. So they took those prices and discounted them even further. So the difference in cost on the rigs is one thing, and then the difference on those, on buying the cots. Because buying them from Striker would be, or I'm sorry, buying them with Foster Coach would be contingent on buying the rigs from Foster Coach as well. So it's kind of one of those deals where, you know, you get a better price if you buy them with Foster Coach, but you have to get the rig as well, so.
The RCA says you could save almost $23,000.
Yeah. by
And then
going
if
with-
10 for the cheaper, or the low bid on the ambulances, saves quite a bit of money.
Yes.
So knowing that their warranties, our Fraser ambulances warranties aren't for life, do you have a different opinion?
That does definitely change the opinion. The lifetime warranty was actually something that was represented to me on the phone. It does definitely make me lean a little bit more towards center on which one I would favor. And
That being the low bid?
well, I would leave that up to council.
Okay. But there's not a problem that you,
Well, it's just
would
whether
have-
it breaks
I,
down. Whether that's
I was pleased, we got, number one, we got 5 bids out of this, and there was a lot of hard work by Spiro and the chief and everybody. So I'm pleased that we got that many bids, and there's not one of those that I would be embarrassed to have as an ambulance.
Well, and I think the way I would see it too is, since it sounds like we're new to using those things, utilizing those electric switches, if it is a big problem in the future, then the next round that we buy buses or, you know, are looking at that, I think obviously then we learn our lesson and say, yeah, it's definitely gonna save on that run.
Sure, sure.
I guess is how I feel.
I apologize for the information on the warranties. You know, we just had a lot of information and we wrote down the wrong thing, so.
Everyone makes mistakes.
Has there ever been a lifetime warranty on them?
It's
I mean,
it's
that's
one of
kinda
the-
hard to put on.
It's a lifetime warranty on the structural components of the box. Well, until you remount it. And the other company gave you a 15-year structural on the box until you remount it. Well, we're never gonna run one for 15 years. It'll be remounted in 6, so it's the same thing, so. I
There's wording in there
apologize.
as well about wear and tear. Well, what's wear and tear? So a lifetime warranty, that's a good thing on paper, but what is normal wear and tear? And I would like more explanation other than a one sheet of paper that defined that a little bit more appropriately, no matter who the vendor is.
The differences are negligible.
well, if the differences are negligible, then I'd be happy to make a motion to amend the resolution awarding the purchase order to Fraser, but now to purchase
Low bid.
of the 4 ambulances to the low bid, which is Foster Coach Sales Incorporated from Sterling, Illinois.
I would second that. And I would just say, please make sure to track if those
We will.
components do break down. I mean, bring that forward.
We will.
Yes. And how do we,
Spiro, do you want to say something?
I was going to say, if you look at the RCA's for the COTS and the defibs, they do have all the bids that are in there, but all the ambulance companies, their prices for the defibs and COTS are contingent on purchasing the ambulance from them. So if you look at the COTS, the Foster COT would be cheaper
yes,
if you amended that resolution also.
yes.
So we're talking about
And-
the overall best low bid we can handle.
So we'd vote on 12B first though, right? And then we'll go to 12C.
That's what you're talking about,
is
the lower bid, this.
the lower bid for the ambulances, which is action item 12B, and then 12C would be the cots. And after we're done with 12B, I guess we can amend 12C. That makes sense.
There's a motion pending on the floor to amend to the Foster.
Yes.
Okay.
Gretkin,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Capron.
Aye.
C is a resolution awarding purchase order to Stryker Sales Corporation for 4 Stryker Power Pro cots. You'll need to amend that, Pete.
Yes. And I would make the same motion to amend the purchase order to the low bid, which is Foster, for the 4 Stryker Pro, Power Pro cots to Foster Coach Sales, Inc., Sterling, Illinois.
Second.
Scott,
Aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Capron,
Aye.
Gretkin.
Aye.
D is a resolution awarding a purchase order to Avery Brothers for equipment to repair the Tyson Event Center marquee.
I have a question on that. What are they replacing?
Insurance sign went out and it's covered by insurance.
Isn't it the sign that's out by the road, right? Yeah. Yeah, if you drive by, you can see the damage pretty easily, yeah.
They are replacing the west face sign, or the west face.
Name and address, please.
Rick Powell, Director of Operations, Tyson Event Center.
Thank you. West side of the sign.
The west
Okay.
face of it.
I didn't go by it, so, okay.
But it sounded like it was covered by insurance or under insurance as well.
Yep, yeah.
That's good.
13 are applications for cigarette, tobacco, nicotine, vapor permits. See the list. Come forward if you have questions. 14 applications for beer liquor license. See the list. Come forward if you have questions. 15 receipt of minutes. See the list. Come forward if you have a question. Anybody want to be heard on any of those items, please come forward now. Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Scott,
Aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Gretkin,
Aye.
Capron.
Aye.
Recommendations of planning and zoning. 16 is a hearing and ordinance vacating a part of the John Street adjacent to 2101 and 2015 Plum Creek Road. Petitioner Sylvia Castle, P and Z recommends approval with conditions. I'll move that.
Second.
Susan Stewart, Vice Chair, Planning and Zoning Commission. This is a vacation. There were no people who were objecting to this vacation. The only 2 people who were interested in using the roadway were the party who asked for the vacation. She wants to pave the road for better access to her home because I believe she needs home health care. The people at the south end of the road, the abutting landowners, want access. They want to pave their portion of the road. And there was no objection on the part of the person that filed for vacation. The Planning and Zoning Commission gave the landowners quite a lot of advice for no reason whatsoever, but there was no objection to the vacation.
Are you upset at them? They were giving them advice?
No, there was just we had just a lot of discussion about a whole lot of things. The one condition was that an access easement be entered into between the parties so in lieu of the street, because the only people affected by the vacation are the 2 abutting landowners. No, whenever you get 3 lawyers together and, you know, other people have opinions and you're talking about easements and power poles, there's a lot of discussion. That's all I'd say. If you read our minutes.
Yeah, we get that, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Call the roll, please.
Waters,
Aye.
Capron,
Aye.
Gretkin,
Aye.
Scott.
Aye. Is any,
I will.
Second.
Capron,
Aye.
Gretkin,
Aye.
Scott,
aye.
Waters.
Aye.
I move second and third.
Second.
Gretkin,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Waters.
Aye.
Capron.
Aye.
17 is a hearing and resolution accepting a proposal of DLG Properties for land in the combined central Sioux City CBD urban renewal area, the property at 218 Kansas Street and 14 West 3rd Street. I move that.
Second.
Scott,
Aye.
Waters.
Aye.
Capron.
Aye.
Gretkin.
Aye.
18 is an ordinance amending the housing maintenance code to increase the rental permit fee schedule. First consideration passed September 17th, 2018. I'll move second reading.
Second.
Waters,
Aye.
Capron,
Aye.
Gretkin,
Aye.
Scott.
Aye. Anybody opposed to the reading, third reading?
No.
Waiving the
No.
rule. I'll move to waive the rules.
Second.
Capron,
Aye.
Gretkin,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Waters.
Aye.
I'll move third reading.
Second.
Can you just do that? Gretkin,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Waters. Capron.
Aye.
19 is a resolution approving a consulting services agreement with H.R. Green and the Bluff Road Reconstruction Project deferred for September 17, 2018. I'll move that.
Second.
In the future, when we have rules, I know you're not going to be with us anymore, but for you, the rest of you that are here, it would be nice if you put the procedure you went through so that we know that you did comply with at least the intent of the council would help. Okay?
Scott,
Aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Capron,
Aye.
Gretkin.
Aye.
20 is a hearing and resolution approving the First Amendment Development Agreement of the Warrior Hotel Limited Partnership deferred from September 10, 2018, deferred from September 17, 2018. I'll move that.
Second.
Anyone to be heard? Call the roll, please.
Little discussion, couple questions maybe?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I was
Okay.
just looking out there.
I first want to say that conceptually, the Warrior Davidson project is a terrific project, and I would love to see it completed. I think it would be great for downtown Sioux City, and at the same time, I'm somewhat reluctant to vote for it because I'm a little concerned about the city guaranteeing payment should something happen and the developers had to default. I do have a couple of questions that seem a little confusing to me. We don't know what the state is going to do in terms of awarding the tax credits. And we won't know that. I know that there's a conditional approval for 14.5 million, but the amount requested now is 16.5 million. And so it seems to me that we've got the cart in front of the horses, because it would be more appropriate to approve a development agreement when we know what the tax credits will be, as opposed to not knowing. I've heard 3 different sets of numbers tossed around, and we're not gonna know from the state until they make the announcement.
Not unless you have better communications with Debbie than I do.
No, I've gone to everybody I could to gather information, and I've seen at least 3 different makeups on this thing, or 3 different amounts that they believe will be awarded. But it seems appropriate to me to wait until the reward or the award is made before we make the determination if that's what we want to do. And again, I've got a couple other questions. I mean, it would just seem to be appropriate.
But if you wait till the award, you don't need the guarantee.
Right.
Which makes me happy.
Right.
Well, you wouldn't need the guarantee?
No,
The bank wouldn't ask for a guarantee from the city?
no, because the credits are what they're guaranteeing.
Okay,
Is what this is guaranteeing.
okay.
We have 2 things,
Need your
Councilman
name
Gregg.
too, Lou.
Huh? Pardon? Oh, excuse me, Mayor.
Well, the city attorney's reminding me to do my job. I have not done that well lately, so.
So along that same line, before we get too far away, what happens if the state doesn't award the 14.5?
Conceptually, I can provide the background as to what the request is here today. The request is for a city guarantee up to the amount of $16.556 million. Conditional approval, as you had mentioned, is 14.5 currently. I believe the developer anticipates that the first round of historic tax credits will be awarded. Application period for the increased amount is in October. Expected decision sometime in November.
Conceptually, the city guarantee would follow the tax credits. 2 rounds, one in November, one in the spring, is what I have been told, what's been represented to me. Say, for example, that $14.5 million is awarded in November, the city's obligation would be reduced by that amount. So you'd have an outstanding $2 million that would be out there potentially for the city to guarantee for repayment. If the spring round comes and there's approval for the additional $2 million, then the city's obligation is completed at that point. The question is, however, what the state will award, and perhaps others can offer information related to that, but there hasn't been a set number, as you had stated. As of now, we don't know. So for example, if the state were to award something less, like $5 million, there's a default down the road, then the city's obligation would be up to the $11.5 million. For repayment back to the bank under the terms of the bridge loan. However, if everything is awarded, then that obligation goes away.
Sure.
But it's the not knowing part right now that I believe is giving you pause, because we won't know until the award is done.
So the state will be awarding the tax credits together with the second round of applications? Or
Lou, if I can, Lou Weinberg, representing the Warrior Hotel Limited Partnership. Councilman Greckin, just to clarify language, award and allocation. What we're going through now is an allocation process from the state. We apply, if we score high enough, which we've been told we will, they will then allocate the 14 million, was that, Nicole?
14.5?
My understanding is what has been applied for in the amount of historic tax
Right.
credits has a qualifying amount of up to $14.5 million.
And there's a conditional approval on that?
The final approval is the award, and the award is done when the project is finished. And you certainly have it certified, and then they give you your final award letter. So the allocation is basically a placeholder that the state sets for the project for the amount of credits applied for. And right now, while we're short in the numbers for the initial go-around, that's because the application is going to be modified when the window opens October 1st to the end of October to resubmit on the project, which we are preparing to do.
For the extra 2 million?
Yeah, well, no, in total for the project, yes, correct. Now, that probably won't, because of the number of applicants, that won't be awarded, as Nicole indicated, till the spring round. So unless something happens.
And so Donna, we're bonded for the whole thing then, right?
You've reserved, you have.
We have to,
Well,
we have to
right.
set aside for debt capacity, Donna Forker, Finance Director. We have to set aside bond capacity of $16.5 million until our guarantee goes away.
Okay. And the
Which
total
goes
guarantee?
away at the allocation.
Correct.
Or at the
Not the
award.
award.
The award.
It goes away at the allocation.
At the time that the state comes forward and designates the dollar value, that's when the city's obligation with, Lou has used the term allocation, I believe, when the city's obligation goes away.
Correct.
So is that in October, or is that when the finish of the project?
The award, the final, my understanding is that the city's guarantee is reduced proportionally with the allocation. So the first round will probably be somewhere in that $11 million range or so, the 14, which will be the Warrior. And the second one, spring. If would be a shortfall in applicants, which I doubt we possibly be allocated this fall as well. But, the final award of those credits is subject to the project completion, but the city's not on the hook, as I understand it, during that period of time.
Right.
So if the city, or if the state allocates $11 million, the city's just guaranteeing the remaining 5.5?
Correct. And the language
Well,
in,
not only guaranteeing 3.5, because
Up
we're
to-
limited to 14.5 until they get the 16 points.
no, until they apply for, they have to
Okay,
submit,
all right.
until the application is made. There is,
Okay.
I mean, they could not get additional allocation.
Without
and the
the
city would
application.
still be obligated to the 16.5. But the language in the development agreement reads, the city guarantees shall be effective only up and until such time at which the developer receives allocations from the state. So it's on the front end of the allocation period.
Okay.
One thing Dave Bernstein would like to say a few words regarding this, since he sits on that board as well, if that's okay.
Sure?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Dave.
Dave Bernstein, 208 Court Street, Sioux City. I'm the chair of the due diligence committee of the Economic Development Authority, and we approve the rules that this program operates under presently. Just to clarify, in general, historic credits and that program is a little different than some of the more competitive, like Brownfield, Grayfield, where I'm also chairing that this cycle. The city, in the case of the riverfront, may ask for $1 million, but only be awarded a subset of that. In the case of historic, generally what you apply for is what you're awarded. It's a question of when you're awarded the allocation, and ultimately you don't get the credits to use until the project's completed and you file the Part 3 that's approved, which in this case would be roughly 2020. The same thing occurred when we redid the Beacons building. We applied for $2.8 million in credits and ultimately spent $2.8 million, a quarter of that, and ultimately spent $4 million. So then we had to wait for another couple of years to get the remainder. The program has always, in general, funded the amount that the developers has asked for, and that amount continues to advance as time goes on. One of the things that caused some problems here is the department in our rules that we just passed put in a 10% max. So when they applied for $14.5 million, they could have overrun by any amount and still gotten those credits over time. But now with the new rules, they're gonna need to up that to the 16.5 or whatever that number is. That being said, it's anticipated that the Warrior portion of that gets funded in October, November coming up here. The application deadline is the third week in October. And so they will be coming in for the higher amount to apply. And it's also anticipated the Davidson portion, which is the rest of it, would be awarded in the spring, although the director of the department has indicated potential of amending the award contract with the Warrior to include the Davidson at that time, which would be sooner. And ultimately, the net effect of that would be to remove the city's bonding obligation sooner so that you're not encumbered. But that's how the program works. So it's not really competitive. It's not a program where you apply for 16.5 and then our board says, oh, you only get 8. No, it's not like the reinvestment district. It's generally the amount you apply for, ultimately you're awarded. It's just a question of when, given the queue of other projects. So again, the director, Durham, has indicated that this project should be up for award coming up here in November, seemingly, and therefore this is just to bridge these guys' obligation with the banks until they're awarded the allocation from the state. And once they are, then it would relieve the city, I think is my understanding, not having seen the documents. And it helps them to just get their financing closed now, which is also a condition of your investment district application, that this stuff needs to start getting ticked off. So I don't know if that helps or confuses.
Yeah. No, appreciate it.
Yep, got it.
One thing along that same line is it's a points scored system. And the last time, based on the way the rules were interpreted, we did not score the maximum points for financing in place. By the city's assistance with this guarantee, it gets us to the stage where we will score the highest amount of points because all the financing will be in place, or is committed to be in place, and we should close on the loans with the banks in Cedar Rapids in probably the second week of October during the cycle that's open now. So yes.
Because that kind of gets to the point, Mr. Cauldron, when you and I spoke about what would happen if, we revisited this after their allocation in November, but if you have the financing before that and the point system is raised before the November letting, then at least then you know.
There's also a timing factor because of some of the peculiarities of the credit related to the Warrior. If we aren't started by a certain time, we will lose a share at the end that we would otherwise gotten, which could impact. Right. So by being able to have the city guarantee along with the personal guarantees of the developers during this period of time on what you're doing, that allows us to make sure we meet that deadline and don't jeopardize any of the credits at the end when it's placed in service.
Additionally, the city guarantee, if nothing is allocated in November, the city is not obligated. At that point, there has to be a state allocation. But again, the state allocation could be any dollar amount under the $14.5 million, and then the city's piece is the rest of that. So the only absolute out is if there's no allocation. Otherwise, if the agreement is approved and the guarantee is approved, then the city is obligating for that full
Well, I'll
amount.
be having council meetings down at Court Street or whatever, if that happens.
So,
In your conference room, David, my boy. Just wanted you to know that.
So I have another concern, and maybe Donna can help me with this, but will a decision to approve the additional support for this project and go up to 16.5 million, will that have an impact on the city's debt capacity?
The question will depend upon the timing of the allocations. If they allocate all of the $16.5 million before we go out for bonding, then it won't have an effect because it will have been released. But if, when we go out for bonding, which we usually do in April, we have any portion of that, I do have to include that as committed debt, and I have to use that in my calculation, so it would affect bond capacity.
But right now, we have it.
Right now,
Or we have to, do we have to go after it in April? Is that what you're
whatever
saying?
action you take tonight doing the guarantee, I have to set aside $16.5 million in bond capacity. And as the allocation of the credits happen, it will reduce that liability.
Got it.
Will that impact our ability to put together a CIP budget in 2019 for 2020? I mean, what kind of impact will it have? Will there be less money available to do CIP projects?
We will have to be cautious with the time. Well, obviously, by the time we put our CIP together, we'll know what'll have happened in November. So that will help us there. And did you?
I would say it will to the effect that it does affect our debt capacity. We like to be at what, 60%?
We like to be at 60, but we're a little high right
quite
now.
a bit. So if the guarantee were enforced, it would definitely affect future CIPs. This one's kind of an unknown. We expect the guarantee to go down quite a bit between now and March. So it'd be just what was left that's not allocated that would have an impact.
Right. If I were to have to issue the $16.5 million in debt, we would obviously be at 70% of our debt capacity, but I don't anticipate we would be there.
You don't anticipate what? I'm sorry.
If they're going to allocate based on the discussion tonight, we should know by the time we even start budget hearings.
Correct.
Does the debt capacity, as it increases, the same time doesn't our ability to bond, well, the interest rate probably is going to be higher?
If we were to
cost us more?
If we were to hit 70% of debt capacity, I do believe from our conversations last time with bond rating agencies, we would lose our rating, which would cost us more in interest.
And that's so long as it's the 16 full at the time that we do that in April.
Between 14 and 16 million is definitely going to affect us.
In April.
Yeah.
But this will all be done way before April.
We will know.
Allocation, you won't know.
Well, the first allocation we will know, because it'll either be in October or November. They cut
You'll
off.
know if you get the whole 16.5? No.
The 14.
Well, that's what I mean.
Well, it's possible we could get that, but what we've been told is count on the little lesser amount because we don't know if we're gonna have the ability to fund that many projects.
Yes.
So we should be in that, what was it, short 3 million, so we're at maybe 13 or something like that. That's where we're thinking will probably be allocated for the Warrior.
I'm not sure.
In all likelihood, after the first allocation, the guarantee will drop, I'm guessing between 3 and 5 million.
Right.
Depending on what the first allocation is.
Were there any other concerns that I know legal outlined some of the questions or concerns? Were there anything else that weren't addressed or looked into as outlined? I know they were looking at personal guarantees were in that as well, or things that were requested within the development agreement.
Personal guarantees were requested from the developers. That'd be Emmerich Gill, Emily Gill, Mr. Weinberg and his wife. We have two guarantees that have been proffered by the developers, Mr. Weinberg's and Mr. Gill's. We have two signed guarantees. So two of the four they agreed to present to the council. We had indicated that's for the council's consideration on whether they would require more guarantees or if two were sufficient. And the personal guarantees of the developers are a backup. For example, if the city guarantee were called into effect, and the city would have the ability to try to recoup funds that it would pay. That's an attempt for collection on a contract related to what would be outstanding if that were to happen.
So what's the downside to waiting before to approving a development agreement until we know what the allocation will be?
I think Lou's being somewhat metered in what he's saying. The downside is unfortunately the change to the federal tax code dramatically changed the payout of federal tax credits to 20% per year over 5 years. So if they don't close their financing soon and start construction soon, it takes another big hit to their bottom line. So this is something that has been discussed at the state level as well, is the fact that for no reasons that are clear, the federal change to the tax credit system it's very detrimental to a lot of these projects in the works, and they can beat that timing by getting their financing closed very soon and starting very soon. So that's really the challenge, is the cash flow on the federal credit, the 20% federal credits over 5 years instead of at the end of the project in 2020. So I think that's where the rush is to close the finance. Not to mention the fact, again, it also impacts your reinvestment district application, and you guys will have to extend if, say, this doesn't close until the end of the year or early next year. We just discussed, Marty was just there last week at our board presenting and indicating that their financing should be closed sometime yet this month or early next, before our next meeting. So I mean, I don't know that that's a reason to do it, but the federal issue is a big issue, very big issue.
And the point system as well, is that correct?
The point system.
I mean, it's negligible, it's not as important.
We are going to be meeting soon on the rules, because the rules really should be amended at the state level, in my opinion, as a board member, to indicate that with the receipt of state credits, you will be financially viable, not are you financially viable now? Because one could argue everyone who's financially viable then doesn't even need the credits. Yeah. And that's kind of the argument we have with every single award that we make at the state level, is do people really need this? If they're viable enough that they don't need it, why give, That makes sense. So we're giving people extra credit to have all their financing in place, but by definition, that means it's generally small now. That some bigger projects, not only this one, but like the Hotel Fort Des Moines and some others, without the state tax credit, can't really proceed. I mean, it's 25% of the qualified cost of the project, which is basically everything. And so for 25%, you can't. I mean, that makes or breaks most of it. I can tell you in the case of our building, where we spent $4 million, you don't do that project, you go build new for $2 million. So in this case and many others larger, you need the 25% and the 20% from the federal to make these work. And so
that makes sense. Thank you.
I think that was one of the other reasons. Some, we went ahead early, last year actually started, and we advanced about $1 million to get the plans all done and get everything ready for bid. In fact, project has been put out for bid. We've conducted bidders tours through the building, so we've put a lot of money and time in up front to make sure we are ready to do this project and have it ready to roll as soon as possible. So, and we appreciate, obviously, the city's help, because otherwise it wouldn't move ahead.
Well, I can tell you, you certainly need this money, and we certainly need the Warrior done. And the way I look at it, this is a last chance. It's been sitting there for 40 years. I think we need to jump on it and get it moving. So we're kind of betting on the come here, but I believe that we're making the right decision.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No. Anything else? Any other questions?
No, I don't have any. I would tell you that I still, maybe I'm a little bit of a worrywart. I probably am, but
Well, this is not something somebody shouldn't worry about, but I will say that I agree with Rhonda. I don't know that this project gets done if we don't do it. And, you know, is the risk worth it? Oh, I have a little comfort level from talking to Debbie that there is going to be an award, but that's, you know, she can't guarantee what her commission is going to do. She's only said that the project qualifies and should be funded. So you've got to, you know, I'm relying somewhat on that, and I'm relying somewhat on the 42 drafts that our outside counsel and Lou's outside counsel went through to get to this stage. It was not an easy process that Nicole got to look at every step of the way, and reaffirms my commitment that the world would be better off with a few less attorneys, but not you, of course.
how did he?
But certainly, the agreement has been well vetted, I would say that. And there is no guarantee. I'm hopeful that first week in November that at least 12 or 13 million of this goes away. That's my hope. I think it will. And so it's a little easier to swallow that if that's the case, because the downside is if we go to tear those two buildings down, that $2 or $3 million that we're guaranteeing may be cheap. That's all I'm saying. So that's the other side you've got to look at for me. So call the roll, please.
Waters?
Aye.
Capron?
Aye.
Greckin?
No.
Scott?
Aye. Okay, we will go to citizen concerns. Any citizen that would like to be heard, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Sharon Drilling from Drilling Pharmacy on Morningside Avenue. And last week you were presented with a citizen concern in regards to rediscussing the 3-lane formation of Morningside Avenue. I've already sent all of you a letter with the majority of our concerns. I did, however, you know, this is a revisited conversation from almost exactly a year ago. And there was a traffic study that was brought to the attention of you last week indicating that there's 160% higher than the statewide average on Morningside Avenue. And it talks about the 986 crashes per 100 million vehicle miles. Okay, honestly, I don't really know what that means. And I'm not sure that the general public does either, but what they heard was 160% higher than statewide average. And I thought, gosh, you know, we are on that street 13 hours a day. We're not seeing the 117 accidents during that 4-year period. So I did this last year, and I regret that I didn't keep the gentleman's name that I had talked to, but he had given me this map that showed me where all these accidents were at along Morningside Avenue. And he said what that study doesn't tell you is that not all of them happened exactly on Morningside Avenue. So many of them are in the vicinity of Morningside Avenue. So to me, that's kind of askew. Justin and Dave are following up on, and I've been in conversation with Justin and Dave, so we've been communicating this week. We want to work cooperatively, the merchants and your employees here. We've decided to get together on Wednesday, and we're working with the merchants. We've invited Mr. Weber to come, and I believe that Dave and Justin have also invited a couple of you to come as well. I'm concerned about the way that was perceived about that increased statewide average, because I really don't think that's what's happening on Morningside Avenue. When we talk to the people that are working there and living there, we're not recalling all of these accidents that are being placed there. You were not seeing that. And when we designed that street in front of our section of the Phase 1 project, we talked with Paul Stinsland very extensively about how that traffic should flow and what we need as businesses. And that's why we stayed with that 4-lane street. It's working for us, and I just have a really hard time making that change to 3 lanes when there's so many reasons why it won't work. Why would we want to change something that's not broken?
First of all, I'll be very blunt. I said 3 lanes after you get to the Great Southern Bank, is what I said last week, in the residential neighborhood. I don't see how that affects you. Second of all, I'm getting emails, which bother the heck out of me, because somebody's putting out here that we're talking about back-end parking again, which was never discussed last week.
Okay,
But yet
good.
that rumor's out there again. So we need to squelch the rumors that are out there that somebody's spreading, because that's not what was discussed here last week. Okay? And we very clearly said, we're not doing anything without having public hearings.
Right.
So we're not gonna debate this, in my opinion, every Monday here. We're gonna do it the right way with public hearings. I'm not trying to cut you off, but some of the stuff that you're alluding to was not even mentioned here last week. I want you to know that. And why does it going to 3-lane affect you where you're at? Because once you get past Great Southern and you get down past Lakeport, it's 3-lane all the way there, folks. I hate to tell you that, but it is 3-lane all the way. So if it doesn't affect your particular segment.
So we're not changing our segment? We're not even discussing that at all?
But that's what the discussion last week, at least on our part, was, if we're gonna look at it, we're gonna look at it from like Nicollet to the east.
Okay, so not towards us.
Well, I think that's the discussion they want to have.
That may be,
Because I think
maybe the
engineering-
staff will have that discussion with you, but that was not anything that came out of this council, I can tell you that. It was
Right.
not mentioned in this meeting last week.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Weber, is that his name? He probably would like it to be all the way. I don't particularly, I drive that street because I have an officer. I hate going in your right-hand lane and coming in front of your store. I hate it because I'm afraid somebody's gonna open the door. I avoid that lane like a plague, and I drive it more than you think I do. And I still think it's a dumb deal. I still think you will move traffic at 3 lanes there just as fast as you will move it 4 lanes, and you won't lose parking. So again, I don't know what the problem with that is. As long as you can, I think it makes it easier for your customers. They can actually back into a parking stall and not worry about getting, because you still have to back up if you're gonna park. I've been there. You don't get to pull in. It's packed. I mean, you barely find a parking stall there. So if you didn't have that lane and people could back in and park easier, it would make more sense to me, but
If I don't have which lane?
that's not something we're gonna decide today, that's for sure, so. So, go ahead.
I'm Bill Drilling, I'm Sharon's husband, and you're talking about rumors, and here you're talking about backing in to parking places when you just said that wasn't discussed.
I said, now wait a
And
minute, I
at the
said you have
council
to
meeting,
back
at the
into a
council
stall
meeting,
today.
at the council meeting last week, or in the paper, it was from South St. Aubin to, it said in the Sioux City Journal that you were discussing 3-laning it from South St. Aubin to South Lakeport. And, you know, in one sentence, you're talking about how dangerous Morningside Avenue is, and in the next sentence, you're talking about putting bike lanes. Now, which one is it? And we are also concerned
It's
about,
nothing. That's my point. We said we were gonna have this, and I told you that on
I
the
thought
phone.
this was the time for citizen concerns.
It is. And I'm
Okay,
not
this
having
is
a
my
problem with that,
concern.
But some of the stuff that's out there today isn't true. We never discussed back-end parking. I said.
just said it
I
5
said
minutes
when you
ago.
have to back into a stall today and park like you parked today, that's backing in to a stall.
Parallel parking.
Well,
Parallel parking
you know,
requires me to back in, is what I'm
Also,
saying.
you were talking last week about worrying about hitting car doors. Well, I mean, you have to worry about that all over town. It's just not on Morningside Avenue. And I have been at Morningside Avenue at the location for 30-plus years, and I can't remember one time when a car door was taken off by somebody driving by. And all of these accidents people are talking about, I cannot, there just is not that many accidents. You know, you're talking about your 3-laning, and you know, the city, they put the snow in the middle of the street during the winter, and they do their best they can to remove the snow, but it's inevitably there for 3 or 4 days before it gets moved. And there you lose your third lane, and you do no longer have a left turning lane, so you have 1 lane going in each direction. And we have to, I know Dave Carney is going to dispute this, but we have to get deliveries at the front door. Our deliveries, UPS, FedEx, will not go to our back, through our back alley. It's a 1920s back alley. So you have snow in the middle of the street, you have a truck stopped in front of it, and then you've got a big traffic jam. And if we three-lane Morningside Avenue, it's going to be very difficult for us to continue doing business on the street.
When we meet with the group on Wednesday, are there things that you would like to see us discuss? Do you want us to discuss parking down there by the residential area? The bike lanes that Alex mentioned? I mean, like, what is it that you want us to try to resolve while we're gathering there?
Well, I can say personally, I think that we need to hear from all sides and be open to compromise. I think that ultimately we want what's best for the area.
Well, and that's why we're all getting together. I mean, I've invited
Well,
Mr. Weber
and I know that
we've
you say
invited
that.
you.
I know that you say that, but then when you come here, it has to be our way or nothing. And that's frustrating because that'll kill a compromise.
Well, isn't it kind of a drastic approach to three-lane that, couldn't you put up, like Heath Weber was saying, you could put up more speed limit signs, you could put up those signs showing how fast people are going. I mean, if people are speeding up and down the avenue, maybe it's a law enforcement issue. I mean, it just seems like it's just very drastic to feel like you have to, through three-lane Morningside Avenue.
We went through this like how long ago? I thought everything was already decided.
You see,
so now all of a sudden here, everything's getting all from last week. Is everything seems to be changing again, and I don't know how that could even be possible. I mean, didn't we decide on 4 lanes?
Justin Potter, civil engineer. September 11th of last year, staff brought this in front of council for decision. At that time, council decided for staff to continue the project as a 4-lane corridor.
So my question is, how can we go backwards? It's been a year. I mean, it's going to cost us money to change to three lane for one thing. I know
it's
that
just striping at this point in time for that portion. The only part that would be any additional funds, I'm guessing, and I'm not an engineer, would be the portion that's right there at the intersection when you have to move that around. Possibly, is that correct? Or maybe?
Well, I bet there's more than that. And then the fellow brought up last week about doing underground for the poles and stuff. I don't know how that can happen because
Already it's been decided, there's nothing that's gonna happen.
exactly. So, I mean, some of this it's all.
I'm asking them, how does that
Boy.
affect them to be 3 lanes from Nicollet East? How does that affect your business?
Oh, they can do whatever they want down there, but I took it as you were also coming all the way down to our intersection.
When that guy stood here and said last week that you didn't even consider, I said, I was for that, I've been for that. I've been from the very there that night.
Yes, I was.
And I was as clear as can be. I said, once you're in a residential neighborhood, why does it have to be 4 lanes?
And we don't care.
Yeah, so
It's just in
That's
front
what,
of,
if you get the, I don't care what the Sioux City Journal says, quite frankly, because sometimes they're not always 100% right. You can get the tape from last week and watch it. That's what I said. And if they want to look further down the road, we'll have public hearings. But I was very clear that it was from Nicollet East. Because I said, you're already at Lakeport, you're already 3 lanes. What the heck difference does it make, which would allow parking, if nothing else, on the north side of Morningside Avenue today that they don't have in that neighborhood?
So really, all on Wednesday, we just need to discuss from South Nicollet East.
I don't really, some of the emails I've gotten this week have been upsetting to me. So do whatever you need to do and have the public hearing, like we said. I'm all for you, and whatever happens, happens, but.
All right.
Because I think what you're gonna run into is, look, us as council, that we drive that, or that, if we travel on that or see that, we want everyone to be happy.
well, so
Right?
do we.
And so we want the residents to be happy and have 3 lanes, so it's slower traffic, it's a lot more like a neighborhood, that you would have. But we also want the businesses to be happy and have the adequate parking, have their patrons be able to get there safely, all of those things. What your engineering department will say is, look, based upon the data, it should be 3 lanes that full way. So you have a city council, a mayor, and others, that yes, it would be awesome to have 3 lanes down in that end and 4 at the front. right? Like, that's what we would say. Engineers would tell you that, look, we've studied this. We went to school for a number of years to learn about traffic, and that's why we have to pay to have those traffic studies. They would say you're crazy to do that. So we have to decide, are we crazy? Should we make it 4 to 3? Or should we just have it 4 that whole way? Because how do you divert traffic in that right-hand lane? Because I'm saying, if that was possible, that's what I would want to do. But you have to make sure that right turn lane is either going to turn when it gets past what, Sarge's or something like that. I forget if it's a Sarge or the Mini Mart, whatever's right there, right? That it either turns or they're gonna slam into the car next to them because they have to get over if people are parking on that parallel parking in front of the houses. And so that's the discussion we have to have is I wanna make sure that you guys will have adequate parking in front because I'm a patron, I park there all the time getting prescriptions. And so I know that I park there and I want people to be, I want your trucks to be able to unload. I think unloading on Morningside Ave is illegal and it shouldn't be happening, but it's allowed to happen. And I understand that alley. I drive that alley. I would never want a truck to go there, right? But then we can talk, well, can the truck be on the side? Because what the mayor's saying, or I don't know, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but what I'm saying is if it was 3 lanes at the intersection, we allowed the parallel parking to still be there, it's safer for your patrons of what the mayor's saying when they open their door, right? And you still have parallel parking and you have 3 lanes that whole way. So the businesses aren't losing. The only thing that you would lose in that is the ability for the trucks to stop in front of your business.
What about when the snow is in the middle of the street?
I guarantee you we have enough intelligent minds that we could figure out where we're going to put that snow.
Well,
what I would advocate, and this is just me spitballing as a citizen, is I would say, look, in the winter, you can't park in the parallel areas next to your house. That's where you push it. You push it to the sides.
Snow used to be up on our sidewalk, so it's a lot better in the middle of the street for us, but, you know, basically there was no place to put the snow. And, you know, you talk about the delivery trucks parking on side streets or in a parking area. I mean, we have no control over where they park.
I understand that, and that's why we would have to be a behavior that was learned. That said, look, we are going to this, they need to now exit there because we're changing the road configuration. You know what I mean? It would be that type of, and that's the conversation I hope we have on Wednesday, is just people being open to looking at options. I want you guys to be happy on that end, and I know, trust me, I understand your argument that you've been there for 30 years and you don't see those accidents and they are not happening there. But people fly up and down my street right in front of my house. And if I would have them do a speed study and it would prove me wrong, I couldn't say, well, that's not even true. That's not true. I live here. I see it all the time. I would have to go with what we paid professionals that do that for a living to do. I would have to trust that. And so now I have to trust what I'm told by Mr. Carney was one of the best in the state that analyzed this area. I have to trust them. Even though I would say, I live there, I see it every day.
But the person
Well,
that gave you the
I
map also
disagree with
told
you,
me that
I
it could be a
don't know
half
those
block or a
details.
block.
I understand that.
So, anyway, well, we'll just discuss on Wednesday
Yeah.
and see what we
Yeah.
come up with.
I think that's good.
But if you have something that you would like us to discuss, then bring it to the table.
Well, I would tell you that my primary concern is just the safety of the vehicles and the pedestrians in the area. So when Public Works focuses on what is the safest way to have traffic drive through the neighborhood, be it a neighborhood or a main artery like Morningside Avenue, then those are really the things that I think we need to concentrate on. And if they present to me data that says 3 lanes far safer than 4 lanes, I would have to really consider what is in the best interest of the entire community in terms of public safety. And I don't know where the data came from. I don't know if that was state data that was returned.
Yeah, it all comes from the Iowa Department of Transportation.
I don't know if we've even done a check with the police department to determine.
It's the data that
that's where they get their information?
It's all the data that's inputted by the officer. That's why you'll see crashes that, depending on how the officer writes it up, will depend on how each officer interprets it differently, what the cause was. So that's why you sometimes got to look at what the individual incident reports, and that's all.
The data, as I recall, was like, did you have it?
114, I think, in the 5-year period.
And is that where the
Over-
discrepancy would come from then, as far as the address or where it happened? Is where the
No,
officer wrote it, or
it's a
what?
I mean, you can go on the Iowa DOT website and look up crash data, and anyone can go on there, click what years you want, box it in, and it'll show you every location. It'll have a pin where the accident and crash happened.
But is she correct in saying that it wouldn't be on Morningside Ave?
Well, it might show it being off, as if it's a car turning onto Morningside Avenue, it's considered on Morningside Avenue.
Pull out and get whacked.
Yeah.
It depends. I believe it depends, depending
And-
upon
and-
where the actual
yeah.
accident
And if you look
occurs.
if you look at the corridor between South St. Albans and Lakeport, it's 60% above the statewide average. Once you include the two intersections, it rises to 160 above the statewide average.
For the number-
And all crash data is recorded in million vehicle miles traveled. That's so you can bring, no matter if it's got 12,000 vehicles a day, 40,000 vehicles a day, are all brought to one common denominator. That's where you come up with your average crash rate. And that's why it's done that way.
So do they regularly or annually or biannually measure the volume of traffic then?
Yeah, we got every 5 years, DOT measures the traffic. Morningside Avenue is always in that 5-year average. We can ask for other streets. They don't measure every street in the city, but our arterial streets all get measured.
So do you know the period of time that
The last measure was 12.5. When I looked it up today for 2015, when the last time it was measured was 12,500 vehicles per day.
Has any other alternatives been looked at? Last year, you were going to study other alternatives besides three laning, and
We were directed to put in a 4-lane, and that's the section we were going to leave it just as it was.
so you were also going to study other ways to improve safety. Did you ever come up with anything, or?
We didn't come up with anything. We were in the midst of the construction project and trying to get our project let and awarded, and that's why we went with the section that we were directed to do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Pete?
No, I don't have anything else, thank you.
Dave, I do have one thing to ask you. How's our permitting coming on the Riverside,
Or what?
on the Riverside Bridge?
Military.
Oh, military, it'll be in a November letting. We have all our permits, we're ready to go.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we're just waiting until November because it's gonna be a whole construction season, so we're gonna let it in November so they can start early in the spring and
Okay.
get it done.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. All right.
Yes, the bridge and the street.
But how far down on Riverside? All the way?
All the way to, or not Riverside. It's
you're doing military.
Road from Riverside to the bridge.
Not Riverside.
No. Riverside is DOT is looking at doing their overlay, and as part of their overlay, they're gonna change that from a 4-lane to a 3-lane is their plan.
Yeah.
They're gonna change that from,
I have one more thing. I'd like to thank the chamber for the great dinner they had and also for the great speaker. I really enjoyed it, and he was a blind speaker that climbed to Mount Everest and I think to every highest
Highest
point.
peak in every continent.
Yeah,
7 peaks, 7 summits, 7 continents.
yeah, very, very good. Really enjoyed it, so that's, good job to the chamber.
Thank Linda Kalen.
Oh, yeah, Linda Kaelen
That's who
too.
has a lot to say about that, so we didn't have to listen to 2 hours of political stuff. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
thank you so much.
Politician.
Yeah, we got out of there at a decent time too. Oh, my goodness.
That's what I heard, and I
Oh.
was sad I missed it.
Don't be sad.
All right, just a few things that I had that I wanted to mention. On Friday, the 28th, this Friday, from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., I believe, is an opportunity to stop and learn more about Mary Trelia Community House. If you don't know about that nonprofit here in town, this is an excellent opportunity to stop by their location. I don't have the address, I apologize, but from 10 to 11, you can get a tour of their facility.
9? It's
9th.
9th and Jennings?
I thought it was on Jennings,
9th
yeah.
and Jennings.
9th and Jennings.
On the-
So stop and check out the work that they do there. I think they do a great job. Then on Saturday, I don't know a ton about this. I put it on my calendar. I know we had the event about the blue mass.
What is that? I got it on my calendar.
Doesn't that have to do, yeah.
excuse me. I had it on, oh shoot, I shut this
While you're
off.
looking it up, or,
Yes.
you know,
My understanding, it's a religious service that's being held to show support for public safety officials.
That's at Cathedral.
Yes,
At 10
I'll,
o'clock.
of the Epiphany. Yep.
At 10 o'clock, right?
yes.
So that's at 10 on Saturday. There are also a couple different Oktoberfest celebrations happening in town on Saturday. I'm excited about that. Hey, it's not all drinking. Come on, they're fun games.
Oh,
There's
come on.
I have to go judge the bands at Starfest, so I won't be able to.
There's some great food, everything like that.
Oktoberfest, it's all about beer, I know. Come on.
I did not say that.
I did.
And so there's one going on at Jackson Street and then one on Historic Fourth. Should be a good time. And then the last thing that I would mention as well is Bacon Fest is going to be taking place this weekend. It's a great fundraiser. It goes towards Habitat for Humanity. So Bob, if you don't drink and you want to eat a little bit of pig, stop
Do
on
that before the mass.
There we go. Breakfast. Breakfast. with champions.
Oh, boy.
Here's,
I think that's all. Reagan, did I miss anything? What do we got? Anything?
I don't think so, I think we covered it.
What's the blue mass, Pete?
here's the notes on that I had. The Notre Dame Club of Siouxland, area public safety officials in the Diocese of Sioux City, Iowa, are bringing the tradition of the Blue Mass to the Cathedral of the Epiphany on Saturday, September 29th, at 10 a.m. The celebration of Mass on the feast day of St. Michael, the patron saint of police, of law enforcement, and angels, is a way for the men and women of public safety to build solidarity among themselves and an opportunity for families, friends, and the community of believers to show their support and pray for the safety, wisdom, patience, and humanity. Pray for their safety, wisdom, patience, and humanity. There will be coffee and, this is the part, there will be coffee and donuts served after Mass. So. It apparently is a nationwide event. I had not heard of it either, but.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Capron,
Aye.
Redkin,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Waters.
Hi, sorry.